What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the debut album by rap supergroup Rich Gang. Basically, this project is called Rich Gang Self-Titled, and it came out in the summer of 2013. So the thing about this particular project is originally Birdman was supposed to put out an album like late 2011, late 2010 called Bigger Than Life, as far as that pitch can happen, after following up his hit album from 2009, Priceless. But that never particularly kind of happened, and some of the amalgamated type songs just kind of flushed out and didn't really get anywhere. I mean, they were good songs. I think they at least modestly charted, but it didn't really have that much appeal. So Birdman was kind of on to like the next one as far as pitches like that kind of happened. He came up with like a super group, kind of the amalgamation, the evolution of what Cash Money was doing circa the early 2010s as far as pitches like that kind of happened. Lil Wayne was relatively recently out of prison from like 2010 as far as pitches like that kind of happened. Pitches like that he put out projects like the Carter 4 and dedication for some of those type pitches. But this is an interesting type project here just because it's kind of like a soft, kind of like a seldom era for a lot of these folks. Like Drake is not on here, but I think I question if it would have like stolen some of the buzz from his later in 2013. Nothing was the same album, but this is basically like damn near like a Cash Money kind of Young Money type album. If you like Young Money's We Are Young Money from late 2009, this is like the Cash Money variation of that. This is kind of similar to like a DJ Khaled album. Some pitches like that has a lot of folks on here. Rick Ross is on here. The Game is on here. Future's on here. Meek Mill's on here. French Montana, T.I.O. Gotti, some of those type folks. Ace Hood, Kendrick Lamar, even I'd have to say it's just kind of a superstar compilation as far as that pitch kind of goes. Just without DJ Khaled, I would just have to suppose as far as pitches like that kind of happen. It does have some pretty good singles on here. It's pretty trap centric, like the concept of this particular one. Basically, what trap was up to circa around this time. I mean, I feel like this is more of like a throwback album, more so than like a trend setting album, I'd have to say. Kind of reminds me a lot of songs just from like 2011, 2012, some of those type pitches. I mean, I feel like the sounds that Future was fleshing out, Future wasn't here as much in 2013. I mean, he did drop a few mixtapes, but just in the concept of like he hadn't quite gotten to his hit mixtapes like Monster and his hit albums like Dirty Sprite 2 just yet. So it was just kind of a relatively marinating type phase for trap music and just overall particular rap as far as that pitch kind of went. Lil Wayne was kind of on and off year, like some of these. It was just kind of a relatively seldom time. There just wasn't a lot coming out. Nicki Minaj was kind of in a quiet spell as well, so it was just kind of an era for things where trap was just kind of in an interesting pitch of development as far as that kind of went. But it is a good album. This is a classic here. I'm definitely going to say this is going to get a rave classic score. Appreciate this album quite a bit. Just didn't really remember the songs from back in the day. Didn't really recall hearing Tap Out that much. Don't remember the amalgamation of the rollout for this particular album. But it's basically, this might as well be like a 2013 Birdman album. I reviewed this because I wanted to get to some more Birdman projects just to wrap some of his stuff up as far as pitches like that kind of happen. But Birdman's on here enough times. He drops enough verses to where this is kind of like a pseudo. This might as well be like Birdman Presents. It's like Birdman's variation of like a DJ Khaled album. It's just a good concept. But this is a classic here. This is definitely one of Birdman's best, I'd have to say. He has a number of hit albums like Five Star Stunna and Priceless, some of those type ones I'd have to say. It was just an excellent type concept that this is pretty amalgamated well. So if you want a little bit more recent times from like the times of like 2010, 2011, the drill rap and like the futuresque rap from like the Pluto days and like the Dirty Sprite 1 days, some of those type pitches and like Future's just mixtape type fare with songs like Tony Montana and some of those type hits, Turn on the Lights, some of those type bops from Future, some of that type fare. It's just a good concept, kind of get some of that just very throwback. It doesn't feel swashed or dried up as far as that pitch happens, but I would have to say it's just a particular kind of just reflection of that as far as that particular kind of goes. But it is a pretty awesome one. I just look after it like the sounds, just the concept of early 2010s trap from like the drill days, the concept of like early 2010s trap from like the drill days and like the early Future Gucci Mane Waka Flocka type days manifesting into like the sounds that would be circa the mid late 2010s forward and like the Spotify years was pretty good amalgamation. But this is just kind of like somewhat of a conduit, but it doesn't really have that much trendy stuff on here. It's more just like retro in a sense, but it is a pretty awesome concept. But I look after it. There were 3 singles off this particular album. Like I said, I'm not that familiar with these, but I do like them for what I've heard of them. They're definitely pretty excellent. So Tap Out is the first single. It's a pretty nice one. It has Lil Wayne on here. This has Birdman on here, and it has Nicki Minaj on here. It's like a snazzy kind of vintage Young Money. Tap Out is like a snazzy kind of vintage Young Money club hitter. I'd have to say it's like some early 2010s flair. I would definitely feel like about this song. It's like an uncommon kind of seldom smash nowadays. I'd have to say so. It's just a good concept about it. If you're looking for like a mixtape type hit, something that would have been on like a Future mixtape, Gucci Mane mixtape, something like that. I'm trying to think of some other folks that were dropping mixtapes like late 2000s, early 2010s. There's some pitches like that. Just really like a bustle type song, or just relatively just like a swash and just relatively hazy kind of nightclub song, just in the sense of Young Money. If you do remember them from days of like Bedrock and some of that type fare and some of those type pitches, songs like Roger That and some of those type ones, I'd have to say. I mean, it doesn't sound similar to Bedrock or Roger That, but it's just kind of like a basic kind of Young Money type club bop, something that would sound like off a Gutta Gutta mixtape or some of those type folks as far as pitches like that kind of goes. That's a good example of that. It's been able to say, but it is a pretty nice one kind of get here. Lil Wayne's on this particular song, rocks the particular songs. I'd say it's a good concept. We Been On is another nice one. Now, Tap Out actually charted pretty heavily. I noticed on Spotify that had over 100 million plays. So apparently there are some folks that do remember that song quite a bit, but I just didn't catch the train on that one back in the day, I'd have to say. But I would have to say We've Been On is like the second single. This has R. Kelly on there and Birdman and Lil. So the second single is We've Been On, and this has R. Kelly, Birdman, and Lil Wayne on here, and this is a pretty nice one. This is like a highlighted kind of follow-up single, I'd have to say in particular, pretty nice one for that sort of pitch. It's like a vanilla kind of early 2010s trap club noise of a song, I would definitely have to say. This song gives future vibes. I would definitely feel like, and it slaps pretty hard, I'd have to say. So it's just a good concept, kind of get some of this here. I would definitely say about the aspect about this particular song. It's pretty much like a standard kind of DJ Khaled Future, one of those typecast type cut, just to kind of get like an early 2010s trap type sense, I would have suppose. Just some good kind of Instagram IG story type noise pitches like that. It's a good basic kind of vanilla night outing as far as pitches like that kind of happen. I just was supposed about that. It just really has some good high grade type aspects for like a social night of just snap as far as that particular pitch can happen with it. It's pretty festive type one, pretty lively type one to kind of get this thrilling type energy. Good concept for that. It's surprising kind of hear R. Kelly on a song like this, is because he didn't pop up on too many songs like this in these recent times, in these relatively recent times. So it's a good concept kind of see some of these folks on here. Lil Wayne's on the song as well, and Birdman is. So it's a good concept, vintage, and throwback Lil Wayne Birdman days. 50 Plates is the third single. This is another nice one though. This only has Rick Ross on here, but it's a pretty good pitch that this was used as a single off this particular album, despite the fact that Birdman or someone from Cash Money didn't back up Rick Ross on this song. So this is what I talk about with this. So this is what I talk about with this kind of being like a DJ Khaled-esque album here. So basically 50 Plates is like a looming kind of get tore up drill reminiscent type outing of a song that I'd say should definitely take you back to like I Am Not a Star days and MC Hammer type days by Rick Ross, some of those type bears. It's like some good outing. It's definitely like some good outing snaz. I'd have to say it's like some composed rowdiness. I would feel like it's kind of a little bit of drill in there, but it's just not quite as raucous as Rick Ross was in 2010. I kind of feel like it's a little bit more maybe just turned up, but just kind of looking relatively nice, dressed up as far as pitches like that kind of happen. I'd say not quite as just typical kind of stand on the couch, just overall feral craziness, but it is a good concept, like the relative kind of composition of that same type fare. So it's just a differential type pitch. It's a little bit more civil, I'd have to say, but this is definitely some demon time commotion. So it's another stock. This is another stock one to kind of get past like 9:30, 10 p.m. as far as pitches like that kind of happen. Easy kind of after effects to go into the wee hours of the morning as far as pitches like that kind of go. Definitely some good concepts. So this is just a concept. I'm glad that Rick Ross is still doing songs like this. He did do like a kind of buzz song. I forget what I think it's called, like No Games, that he was originally going to put on Mastermind back in late 2013. It's a pretty good concept for that. It's just good pitch to kind of get some of these, just that still have some of these thrilling type ones. If you do like songs by Rick Ross, like Purple Lamborghini, I Am Not a Star, some of those type pitches, some of the ones like So Sophisticated off of God Forgives I Don't, some of those type pitches from Teflon Don, and like God Forgives I Don't type days. It's a good concept of one being on the Rich Gang albums. It's a pretty good pitch. So I would have almost liked to have seen Birdman on that song to see what he could have done with that particular song, because he didn't really do that as much. But pretty good pitch here. So yeah, out of basically there's 16 songs on the deluxe edition, which is also the Spotify edition that I'm reviewing. So it's a dope enough concept to kind of get this. And this is out of those 16 songs, I wound up recommending 13. So it's a real classic type of feel. This album is going to get a 10 out of 10, I would have to say. I kind of look after it. So the real concept about it is the only three songs I don't recommend on here, just to say that easier, would be the first song you hear, RG, which stands for Rich Gang, and RG intro, which is a decent intro, but it just didn't, I don't know, the appeal behind it was just not quite as feral as I would have liked. It had a decent mystical, had a pretty solid mystical verse on here. It was good. This is kind of like a pseudo mystical album too. This is like a pseudo Birdman album. It's also kind of like a pseudo mystical album, because he's on here more than 2 or 3 or even 4 times, I'd say. So it's just a good concept. The mystical pops up enough times on here after not being seen since way back in 2001 with Tarantula. So it's a good pitch. This is probably like the most recent outing, I would have to say, with the most, pretty much damn near close to the most recent mystical verses that he's dropped in like these times. So it's a good concept, but That one just didn't have as much appeal. Million Dollar. Some of these type ones, these R&B type ones, some of these just didn't really have as much full blown appeal. I feel like Million Dollar was at least kind of like a morose type one. Not necessarily morose, but just kind of like that makeshift kind of dredge of just like something that's trap centric, but then also just the concept of being makeshift just within it. I feel like the piano beat on this particular song just didn't jump off the page enough. It just felt a little bit more beleaguered in like a commonplace sense, more so than the actual aspect of having like the standard appeal. Like I think if Future would have picked a production for this, it might have nailed it a little bit better. Not saying anything against Detail or Birdman on this particular song, but the production fare on this one is just a little bit too it's just a little bit too pedestrian that just didn't jump off the page. And then Burn the House, which is Birdman featuring Detail. This one didn't really jump off the page either. This one was just kind of a typical kind of R&B trap R&B type tune that just didn't really have as much snazz and pizzazz about it. I feel like they nailed it on some of these type ones, like 100 Favors, Bigger Than Life, some of those type ones, Dreams Come True a little bit, but some of these type ones that just were a little bit. I mean, they were trying to. I like that they were trying to show off this Detail cat. He was pretty good at like these very similar to Future trap R&B type tunes, but I feel like the production fair and just the overall arrangements of some of these type ones just did not come through as heavily enough as they probably needed to. Other than that, every single song on this album I recommend, so it gets a 10 out of 10. So some of these type ones on here, a pretty feral type one that I would go for if you're looking for more real raging turn up type ones similar to 50 Plates, I'd say is Panties to the Side. This is a real nice appeal type one. This has French Montana on the hook, has Tyga, Bow Wow, and Gutta Gutta on here. It's a pretty good pitch for that. It's definitely like a feral kind of mixtape trap turn up buzz song, I would have to say. Pretty similar like Future and French Montana, pretty similar to like Future and French Montana's mixtape days that I'd say in particular. Definitely from like 2009, 2010, 2011, some pitches like that. And this is like a pretty good club gem, I'd say. So a good concert for that. Definitely. It also reminds me of Meek Mill in a good sense of some of those type of appeals. Is if you like the mixtape type for this, is a good concept for some of that on here just to really get that. Switch up the flow a little bit. Dreams Come True is a pretty nice one. It's like a gauzy and kind of sophisticated summer haze of a song. I would definitely feel like it's like a steamy kind of robe music. I would definitely have to say some good kickback for that sort of fare. It's like a good concept just to kind of smoke some good, and it's just an overall lush type songs. I just like I appreciate the concept of some of this in particular. There's some real good kind of balance. Just something if you like the kind of more soulful type vibes that Rick Ross gives off with some sophistication off of albums like God Forgives I Don't, like the song Amsterdam, some of those type pitches. It has the appeal of Amsterdam, but just kind of in a more island beach type setting where you just would be kicked back in a robe, some of those type pitches of just kind of reading the paper, smoking a good cigar, or something like that, just appreciating the times, just relative type pitch as far as that kind of happens. It's a good concept, but it does it in like a ladies aspect. So it's a kickback type song, but it just has that sophistication of just like some easy kind of just mellow, some kind of R&R type living. I'd have to suppose that's a good concept for that. So, a song with some real good commercial bite on here would be Sunshine. This at least has Limp Bizkit and Flo Rida on here, which is a pretty good pitch amongst some other cats. It's like a gauzy and kind of swash summer glaze of a song. I'd have to say in particular, it's like a commercial bop. I would definitely feel like definite good EDM hitter. I'd have to say it's like some good matchups on this particular song. Some of these type folks, it has Limp Bizkit with Flo Rida, which is a dope enough concept, and this is a pretty lit song. The thing about this particular song is it's a little bit beleaguered, but I just like the concept of overall seeing what was happening with this particular song, and just really the concept. If you like Limp Bizkit, just kind of doing like relative summer hazes with like that kind of, I mean, a lot of this album is pretty gauzy. I just would have to say just the concept of just being a real dewy, gauzy, and just overall balmy type album as far as a lot of these kind of happen. Just some good after effects of some of that springtime, summertime type fare, but it's just kind of a little bit more mellow and malaised about it. But it definitely kind of cashes in on some of that EDM type fare that was popular even into the summer and fall of 2013 as far as pitches like that kind of happen. Flo Rida gives off another stock kind of hook that he was charting on those days as far as that pitching goes. This is a good makeshift type song here. I mean, there is a little bit of makeshift on here. I feel like songs like Angel, maybe a little bit of Tap Out, and Sunshine is definitely a good one for some of those type pitches to get for like some makeshift and workship type haze of like that relative concept and commerce of just 3:30 to about 6:30 p.m. as the sun starting to set. So it's just a good concept just to kick back and get to those times as far as that kind of happens. Angel's a pretty nice one within that relative sense as well. It's like a trap R&B kind of commercial bustle song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like definitely some evening makeshift, I'd have to say. This reminds me of like Future's Pluto days. I would definitely feel like this is like a good unwind from work to kind of get here. This is just a good concept to go pick up some supplies, some pitches like that, figure out what you're going to do, situate, call some ladies up, some pitches like that, just get some good swishers, get some pizza orders and pitches like that, figure out what happened. Just a good pitch to kind of just unwrap from the work shift, get to kicking back, get some times going, and just the relative concept. I mean, I could almost see this in some senses being like Wednesday music Thursday, but it definitely doesn't feel like beginning of the week type fare. Just the excitement of this particular song is a little bit more revved up to the point where it feels like Wednesday, Thursday, possibly Friday type fare as far as just getting ready to have some times. Not the craziest song on here, but definitely some good bustle and overall jive about it. Definite nice one. Bigger Than Life is a pretty nice one as well. It's like a vintage kind of early 2010s Young Money type bop, I'd have to say in particular. It's definitely like some ladies activity on this particular song. Definitely some good ladies activity noise. It's like a balmy kind of warm out gauze of a song, I'd have to say in particular. So this one just kind of gives off that type of Bigger Than Life is definitely reminiscent of like Young Money from like 2010, 2011. Definitely folks like Tyga, Gutta Gutta, some of those type folks, Nicki Minaj, and like her early Pink Friday type days, I'd have to say is just like that kind of happened to some of those type folks in particular. Really good, just commercial bop type appeal, like the Chris Brown hook on here as far as pitches like that kind of happened. Just overall some good aspects kind of get. So overall has that relative radio ready appeal as far as I would predict particularly kind of happen. Just a good one for that sort of sense. Once again, another balmy type summer type fare to kind of get on some of this. So Every Day is a pretty nice one as well. This is like a hop and bop kind of outing breeze of a song, I'd have to say. This one reminds me of like the Big Timers days, just like a 2013 rendition. Big Timers quit putting out albums after like the early 2000s, after about 2003, but they did. Big Timers kind of quit putting out albums after about 2003 with Big Money Heavyweight, but it's just kind of a concept. I look after it. Just a relative rendition, like some of the, I mean, this kind of almost feels like a Manny Fresh type beat, I'd have to say in particular. It's just a good concept, kind of get that, but is something circa 2013, summer 2013, just with like a little bit more electro, kind of just more pizzazz towards it. I had to say it's like a standard day kind of song. Just feels like a standard day kind of hop and bop as far as that particularly kind of happens. And this song is a little bit more commerce than club, I'd have to say. It's a little bit more Travers, just out and about, just kind of day fare, maybe some errand running pitches like that, and day commerce pitches like that, and a relatively kind of electro kind of sense as far as that particular appeal. Just like some pep in your step, just with like the concept of getting some bills paid and stuff like that, or standard commerce, that sort of fare, and just getting to the money, but then just kind of concept of just having some good pizzazz. Some of these songs in the deluxe edition are pretty dope as well. Have It Your Way is a pretty nice one. This is like a basic kind of vanilla night venue noise of a song, I'd have to say. Definite shoot the moon, grab a drink. Definite shoot the moon, grab a drink type kickback, I'd have to say in particular. And this is like a stock highlight. So T.I. is on the song, Lil Wayne, Birdman are on this song. It just has, this overall has some good guests on here. There's a lot of folks. I do, once again, this is pretty damn well similar to like a DJ Khaled album, just within the sense behind it. I kind of feel like it's just the same concept. If you like DJ Khaled, but then you like Birdman, Lil Wayne, some of those type of folks. Lil Wayne is probably on here more than 3 or 4 times as well as far as that pitch kind of goes, and he kills his verse as far as that particular happens. So it's just a good concept. Kind of an awkward era for Lil Wayne. I mean, he did drop "I Am Not a Human Being" too in early 2013, but that was kind of here and there. That project kind of came and went. Had like 4 singles, but he was still gone by like by the end of the spring of 2013 as far as pitches like that kind of happens. So this is just like a good update of like Lil Wayne and some folks like that on some of these. It's kind of what he was up to before he dropped Dedication 5. Paint the Town is a pretty nice one. This has The Game in addition to Birdman and Lil Wayne on this one. This is like a throwback kind of early 2010s Get Money Bustle song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a definite get ready to step out excitement I would feel about this one. It's like some good night gleam about this. I feel like this is a pretty nice one. This one's pretty similar to like Paint the Town is pretty similar to Angel, I'd have to say. It's pretty much like some Hustlers makeshift on this particular song, Paint the Town. Just not quite as work shift type tone and like blue collar type sense, but it's just like a Hustlers makeshift type variation, like the standard fare of commerce, a just the standard, just out and about as far as like blue collar makeshift type, as far as just makeshift type fare would kind of happen with it. Just a relative good, just standard kind of day activity as far as pitches like that kind of happen. I feel like this is a little bit more actual night excitement. It's just kind of the fare, just standard car commute pitches like that, just getting tasks done with the excitement of just being able to. This is just like a hustler's makeshift type version of getting ready to step out a little bit, getting the tasks wrapped up, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, getting ready to step out and head to like some of the more crazier type moments like 50 plates and panties to the side and tap out and some of those type ones that I'd say. So it's a good concept. This album is actually not that feral for what it is. I'd look after it for the most part. This just has a lot. I mean, this has a lot of good night outings on here just within the concept, but it does have a pretty good amalgamation, just like a good variate. I mean, there's some mixtape type bops on here. I would have to say songs like Panties to the Side and Tap Out and some of those type ones, 50 plays, some of those type ones. But then it actually does have some makeshift commerce songs like Angel, Sunshine, Paint the Town, some of those type ones within a relative sense. probably a couple other ones on here, and it does have like some future biting type ones. Not future biting like it's a bad thing, but just the concept of very future similarity type ones to kind of get on here. Some songs like 100 Favors, Bigger Than Life, some of those type ones, and Dreams Come True, some of those type pitches, or at least relatively Dreams Come True. But Fly Rich is a pretty nice one as well. It's like a stock kind of mixtape trap like gem, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a Liddy feeling blitz type aura about this particular song, I'd have to say, and it's like a good social feeling. It's like a good social feeling good night outing of a song, I'd have to say. So this one's definitely a little glared. I definitely feel like you could have a little bit of smokage in your system as far as this particular one kind of goes. Probably the most blitz type one on here. Do appreciate the appeal behind this one. I kind of look after just being able to say I do like the aspect of just getting a little bit glare. I mean, it's not a ton of like actively gonna get completely fucked up and get crunked. It's actually a surprisingly healthier type project as far as that particular kind of goes. I can't think of, maybe apart from like 50 plates, I'd say for the most part this is not even like a song to really get completely pounded and wasted out of your mind. I'd have to say a lot of this is just trap socializing as far as that particular kind of goes. Similar like Future, DJ Khaled, Yo Gotti, Meek Mill, French Montana, some of those type folks like the early 2010s type era, but just within a sense of being relatively just clean as a whistle, I would say. Not necessarily clean as a whistle as if not doing anything, but just the concept is just a little bit more composed and just kind of either way, whether I smoke or drink or not, it's just kind of the concept there's going to be some good times. So it's just kind of a pitch behind that. But I do at least feel like Fly Rich is a good smoking type song. And I probably have to say, if I were to pick some other ones that are some decent ones to get fucked up to, I'd probably have to say 50 plates, like I was saying. Tap Out's a relative nice one just to get like a drink or something. I feel like Have It Your Way is like a decent kind of bar hopping type one to have a little bit. Maybe like some relative social drinkage pitches like that, I'd have to say. But for the most part, this is surprisingly healthier. But yeah, I just look after this particular product. I just would have to say, as far as the aspects behind this kind of go, this is a classic album here just to kind of get, I kind of look after it, just being able to say, a lot of these are just hit after hit after hit. It's just kind of the concept of it. Birdman dropped a classic here, which is a pretty dope concept. And the thing about it is it wasn't really trying to capitalize on new trends. I look after it, it was pretty, yes, it felt pretty comfortable and just overall satisfied with like the future type sound that was introduced in like the mixtape type days, the DJ Khaled, Future, Yo Gotti, Meek Mill, French Montana type pitch that I was talking about before that just has that relative aspect, and it sets that into motion to kind of have that carry out longer as far as that pitch goes. And it's a good concept that definitely nailed it. I would have to say this is not, I mean, despite the fact that nowadays it feels like a throwback album, I still would have to say it keeps these trends alive and all these artists go in as far as that particular kind of happens. So it's just a good keeping the good update to kind of keep trap music vital. It's a good update for folks. It's definitely an update for Mystical. It's definitely an update for Birdman. It's kind of a pseudo update for Lil Wayne, some folks like that. It's too bad that Drake wasn't on here, but I do think, like I was saying, that it probably would have taken some of his buzz from his Nothing Was the Same album. Nicki Minaj is on here at least once, but I kind of look after it's kind of like a miniature update for Tyga as well. He's on here a number of times, so it's just a good pitch to kind of get that. Just kind of see what some of these folks are kind of doing around this relative time. So it's basically like a Cash Money all-star type compilation album, and to that end, it succeeds pretty boundlessly, I'd have to say. I mean, it's definitely a trap highlight. I would feel like definite trap blitz of an album. Has plenty of good social nightlife, like I was saying, but just the concept, it's actually not as much get completely tore up as what you might think. It's the craziness factor on this album. The quality is definitely here, but it's not really like a full-blown kind of feral project, which is interesting. But yeah, the score gets a 10 out of 10. The social score, I'll probably give a 10 out of 10 also, just because the quality behind this. There's the social score, I'll probably give a 10 out of 10 because just the overall blitzing type of appeal of this particular product is pretty heavy. It's just hit after hit after hit. A lot of this production fare is pretty excellent, I'd have to say. It definitely has the social pizzazz, has work shift type songs, has nightclub type songs, has some good ladies type songs, it's pitches like that, some commerce songs, some of that type fare, just overall trap sense. It nails these trap songs. These hooks are pretty good for the most part. I think this album just nails it in spades as far as that particular aspect kind of goes. So it's just an overall quality type project that just basically feels like a Birdman variation of like the DJ Khaled and Future type sound that was dominant between like 2010 to about 2013. So it's a good concept for that. So in terms of the future, Rich Gang has not put out a project since 2014, which I reviewed Rich Gang the tour back in July of 2024. So that's a pretty good pitch. They have at least one more project, which is the Rich Gang mixtape from early 2013. I'm going to get to that one as well. Then that should basically wrap up the Rich Gang type projects. Now I want to actually say there's an unofficial project out there floating around It's like Rich Gang the Tour Part 2. I don't know his full bound if Birdman's a part of that one as much, but at least has Rich Homie Quan and Young Thug with like some relative alignment as far as that pitch can happen. So there was at least some stuff thrown together. It might be like some street singles or buzz singles that were thrown onto that particular project. We'll have to see about it, but I'll get at least to those particular two projects, and we'll get to some more Rich Gang. But what I'd say is like a classic here, definite aspect of just like some early 2010s bliss that this continues to have life lived in it, despite the fact that the trends were shifting to more 2010s trap circuit like the times from like the Spotify years before. But it is a pretty good aspect, and it's definitely a good update on some of these sounds for some of these folks, and it is a pretty social, lively, and overall varietized, vibrant type album.